We're starting Be'ez Hashem Siman Yud Gimel of Maamar Shevuos, and the subject is that the Ramban that the Rabbi brought in Siman Yud Beis said that there was a reason why most of the Jews stayed in Babylonia after Ezra came up, and after there was an announcement the king of Persia allowed the Yidden to come up. There was a reason why most of them didn't come up. The Ramban says because they didn't get permission, the other ones in the other Medinas didn't get permission, or even if they did, they didn't want to come up because they didn't want to go against the Shalosh. They didn't want to be doichekis hakates.
And also, we also said that Ezra didn't want to wipe out the community in Babel, right. They all two the community would disappear.
Right, so he kept the most miyuchistik Yidden, most good lineage Yidden in Babel.
Yeah, all designers who can't wait to see every successful community just disappear.
Right.
Rabbi Sean said.
And then he said, the Pnei Yeshua said even further that even in Babel itself, the Shevuos were in effect at the beginning of Bai Sheni, and only those people came up with Ezra came up, and the rest of them didn't. So now, in the last Siman, he brought down examples of people who did live in Babel. One of them was Hillel, and one of them was Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, when the famous story that he told the guy to ask for the tail, and they gave him the tail.
Yeah, they caught him as a guy.
They realized that the tail is not one of the parts of the carbon that's eaten, so they caught him as a guy. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira wasn't in Yerushalayim; he was in Tzivim, which is in Chutzlaretz. It's in Turkey today. So the question is, what he's going to start with here in Yud Gimel is that how could Hillel and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira live in Chutzlaretz, even though we said that there was no heter for them to go up because of the Shalosh Shevuos, but Lamaisa there's still a din of Kol Adar b'Chutzlaretz Kamisha Oved Avodah Zarah that we talked about in Siman Daled, Siman Hey. And even though the Rabbi said there pshat that basically explains that anybody who lives in Chutzlaretz only during Galus is not called Kamisha Oved Avodah Zarah, because even in Eretz Yisrael it's Kamisha Oved Avodah Zarah. So there's no problem of living in Chutzlaretz during Galus, and the only thing would be during Beis Mikdash times. Then there would be an Indian to live in Eretz Yisrael.
I've been saying Hillel the whole time in Beis Mikdash. So
right.
What did that do then?
So that's what he's going to ask now. So let's see it inside. There was a malchus of the Chashmonaim, Torah de malchus in Eretz Yisrael.
It doesn't mean a government leader, it just means like a kingdom, meaning the power of Torah in Eretz Yisrael is a kingdom.
Okay, a kingdom, a monarchy. Ubefrat b'mei Ezra, in Ezra's time, even though they were under Persia, but they had the Yidden, Erlich Yidden were in control over there.
It was like so much Torah, it was like a whole region of Torah in Eretz Yisrael.
So how is it allowed for Hillel and the other Yidden to live in Chutzlaretz under a government of idol worship?
Oh yeah, because in Eretz Yisrael you had a Beis that was in power, you didn't have it in Chutzlaretz.
Right. So
because in Chutzlaretz they had the Goyish government power. If the Beis were in power, they would go with it that you're enforcing laws that aren't our laws.
And they're doing Avodah Zarah, and we're paying taxes to them.
And more, you get punished for their laws, which is too like Avodah Zarah, because they punish you for violating their point of view.
Okay, this living in Chutzlaretz under a Goyish government when you could be living under a Jewish government in the Bai Sheni times, that's for sure even according to the way the Rebbe learned it in Siman Hey. You have to say, even though I wrote before in Siman Hey, that from the lashon of the brayso that says anyone who lives, doesn't say anyone who goes out. It says anyone who lives. Eino near the Meyer b'yotzei Eretz Yisrael kivin shelo hiskir mu'uma. Doesn't say anything about yotzei. It just says dar. So it's not mashma that we're talking only about people leaving Eretz Yisrael. It's mashma we're talking about anybody who lives there for whatever reason. I found that the source of this memra is in the Tosefta of Avodah Zarah, in the 5th chapter, and there it says, "Shekased b'lashon zeh kol hameiniach Eretz Yisrael b'shas shalom v'yotzei." Anyone who leaves Eretz Yisrael during a peacetime and goes out, ki'ilu oved al-akum.
Okay, that's good.
It's ki'ilu he's doing Avodah Zarah.
Yes, this is Avodah Zarah, yeah.
V'harei shekased b'ferish d'mayir b'yotzei.
But I'm saying you don't even know.
So it's talking b'ferish about when he goes out. Ukashuhu b'shas shalom, and it's talking only when he goes out in peaceful times, when he has no reason to go out. V'cheinhu b'toras kohanim memrazu. Same thing in Toras Kohanim, Parshas Bahar. V'kosav lehedya hayotzim Eretz Yisrael. V'chein b'shita mekubetzes sham. Keshehetik lashon haGemara kosav hayotzim Eretz Yisrael. There's a girsa in Ksubas itself that the Shita brings down on Ksubas that is talking only about Yotzim Eretz Yisrael. And I think we mentioned before that there's a Ramban, the famous Ramban on the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael.
The most common one that's not used to their advantage. It still applies now time to conquer Eretz Yisrael.
Right. So this Rambam, the Rabbi brings down in the beginning of Maamar Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. He says there that she'amru b'ksuvas kol hayotzim mimeno avedar b'chutz la'aretz. When the Ramban quotes this Gemara in Ksubas, he uses the word yotzei, which means.
So it's a different girsa.
It's a different girsa, and it stems with the girsa in the Tosefta and everywhere else that basically the Isser is only to go out, not to live there. Which is basically what the Rif in Ein Yaakov of Yoshia Pinto said. The Rebbe quoted in Siman Daled. Umasha Amru b'Gemara. Wait a minute. Imkain barur. If so, it's clear from this. The Ma'iri rak b'yotzim Eretz Yisrael. It's only talking about going out. Umasha Amru b'Gemara stam hadar b'chutz la'aretz. The Gemara says the lashon hadar, one who lives. Nar girsa. Ev sheshahu al derech shekas v'toisis b'kedushin daf chavtes amid beis gabe halon v'halahu. That it could be that kol hadar is said in a way that it was talking to people in Eretz Yisrael. In other words, there's some Gemaras that were said to Bnei Eretz Yisrael and some Gemaras that were said to Bnei Bavel. And what he wants to say here is that Kol Hadar B'chutz La'aretz was a Gemara that was said to Bnei Eretz Yisrael. So for them, it was talking about going out. Because if they're going to be living in Chutz La'aretz, the only way is by going out.
And there were those that left.
What?
There were those that left Eretz Yisrael to Bavel.
Right, well the Rebbe already said that Bisman Agolis it's okay. But even Bisman by Sheni, he's trying to say even Chiddush here that even then it's only also to go out, not to be born out.
Yeah.
So he says that sometimes when they talk to Bnei Eretz Yisrael, they said a certain halacha in a certain language because they were talking to them. So this is what he's going to say here. He says, Af shel livnei Eretz Yisrael hayat tzarich loimer behepich. Even though Rabbi Yochanan taught something to the Bnei Bavel, to Bnei Eretz Yisrael, he would have had to teach the opposite halacha. Because it has to do whether you go away from your wife to learn or not. I'm not going to get into it, but Omar came leave Bnei Bavel. He said a certain lashon to Bnei Bavel, Yan she'etzlam kach hu. Since for them that's the way it is. L'chein sasam advarim kach. He said it simply that way because he was talking to them. We find many times like this in Gemara. It could be when the memra had kol hadar b'chutz la'aretz k'misha over the zara. It was said to people in Eretz Yisrael, and it was intending to mean that they're going to go out of Eretz Yisrael. For them, the only way to live in Chutz La'aretz is by going out. But just before we go on, I want to just point out, this is shver because the Rebbe said in Siman Daled and Siman Hey, he brought down that the whole makor of this thing is a pasuk by David HaMelech. And David HaMelech said, Ki ger shuni hayoim, they kicked me out of Eretz Yisrael, leimor leich avoid elohim acherim. So the Rebbe pointed out that was talking when he went out against his will, right? And still it's called kilo or the zar. So that doesn't stem what he's saying here. He's saying here that it's only when you yoytze b'shas shalom. Okay, now uvazeh yesh liyashiv masha harba tanoim. According to what we're saying now in Siman Yud Gimel, that it's only when you go out that's there, that it's in the Veira. So we can explain why many tanoim ukadoshim and holy people adein shir without a number hayudarim bebavel. They lived in Babylonia, Ushar Medinas, B'chutz La'aretz, other parts of Chutz La'aretz, af bisman abayis, even during the second Beis Hamikdash. Umashim, yeah.
But yeah, you lived in Syria.
Yeah, Syria, or in this case, Turkey. It's even what today is called Turkey. I guess maybe then it was Syria. I don't know. Okay, it was the Roman Empire, actually, to be exact. But Umash Shemuva be'ezeh Sfarim. This is brought down in many Sfarim. She'ezra HaSofer Hikpid Al Kama Mekoimus Al Shaloi Olu L'Eretz Yisrael. The Ezra HaSofer was angry at Yidden in certain places for not coming up to Eretz Yisrael. V'gam shehiziko lahem hakpadasai, and his his anger caused them a loss, caused them a damage.
Yeah.
Now, what is the Rabbi referring to here? So I'm indebted to Reb Meir Weinberger from Antwerp, who wrote a sefer called Or Ki Tov, and he brought down in that sefer 2 places where we find this. That Ezra was makbid. It's the first page here in the Maamar.
Yeah.
It's the Seder Hadoros, kind of a history of the world by the year by year. So here it says in Hey Alafim Shin Pei, 5,380, which corresponds to 1620 in the Goyish calendar. He brings down that someone learned by somebody who was a Talmud of the Sma. Mr. Pinchas Stegel was a Talmud of the Sma, and he says, "V'Omar b'Shem Rabbi Hagoin Morenu Valak Baal Mechaber Sma." The Reb Valak, Rabbi Yeshua Valak was a kinoi for Yeshua. So he was the Mechaber of the Sma, Sefer Meir Seinaim, appears on Shulchan Aruch, and he said like this: "Masha shchichin gzeros bekehilas varmaija." The Kehila of Worms, Germany, where Rashi went to learn and where the Crusades happened in 1096. So the reason why there were so many destructions there and killings there, and the Crusades came there, Yoiser Mishar Kehilas, more than other Jewish communities or Medinas, Ki bechurban ba'is rishon ba'u v'nis yashpu b'kehilas virms. He says during the Churban of the first base of Mikdash already, Jews came to Germany and lived and settled in this place.
How did they end up in Germany that time?
That's what he
More
says.
so, Germany was not even the country back then.
We're
Germany
not talking about the country Germany.
Was a barbaric, savage place.
Talking about there were tribes and little.
Not an ideal place to be with a bunch of savages. Really, why would you go to a savage place like that?
I don't know, but this is what he says. That
what's his Makor that they lived in Germany already at that time? Hello, what's his Makor?
I don't know. He sounds like he had some kind of a Messiah from them. That this was the Kila Vermaja was found.
It's very hard to believe.
Okay, v'achar klois shivim shanim Galus Bavel. After the end of 70 years of Galus Bavel, chazra goyim Yerushalayim. The Yidden came back from Babylonia, uleretz Yisrael. Elu asher hayu bevirms, those Jews who were in Worms in Germany, loy chazdu leretz Yisrael. They didn't come back. The chaz v'yosh v'Yerushalayim lanshe kehilas verms sheyavoyu. They sent them a letter. Please come back. Gam heim leish leretz Yisrael kadesh yichayim lalos b'shalosh regalim. So you're going to be close to Yerushalayim. You can come up to the base of Mikdash on the 3 regalim. Yerushalayim should rachak moed mehem, because it's too far from you to come. You can't come from where you are. V'lo yishgichu al zeh, and they didn't pay attention. Because v'tshuva, they replied, Sheboy shvu atem b'Yerushalayim. They said, you live in Yerushalayim hagdoila, you live in the big Yerushalayim. V'anachnu nader po Yerushalayim katana. We'll live in the small Yerushalayim. They were enjoying their exile there. They were given a lot of honor. It wasn't like barbarians who were making pogroms. It was, the Tsar was giving them a good life.
A Tsar, yes, but not a king. Because
right,
it was probably a tribal leader. It wasn't like a civilized country.
The Jews in Worms were very rich, and they enjoyed their life there. As a punishment for that came these gzeros, these destructions, pogroms that happened to Worms. And by the way, in the art scroll Kinnis, they bring I think they bring this down there's a Kinna about the destruction of the 3 cities of Germany. I think the 26th Kinna. And there they bring this down, and then they say afterwards that maybe it was Mida Keneged Mida that Hashem brought the Crusaders in particular to carry out this punishment, because the Crusaders wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael and take it over from the Muslims. So it was kind of like...
They did for over 100 years.
And they did for a while, yeah.
Over 100 years. They
actually ruled it. So since they were on the right track, even though they weren't supposed to be the ones to do it, but the Yidden were the ones supposed to do it, so therefore they were supposed to give this muster to the Yidden. That's what they say. And I complained to them. I said, this is not appropriate to say, because you're implying that the Yidden should have gone and done what the Crusaders did and what the Zionists are doing. So that's the wrong implication from that. You can't carry this too far. The Seder Dor is just saying here that there was a time on them back then for not coming up when Ezra asked them to come up. Yeah. Not that they should stop in the middle.
But it wasn't her source, some kind of Russia.
Right.
It was Ezra who was great enough to have been Moshe Rabbeinu.
Right, and there was a nevuah that they were supposed to come back then.
Again, Ezra was great enough that he could have been Moshe Rabbeinu.
Right, the Gemara says that.
So what are you comparing Ezra to Herzl? Just be great compare Ezra to Herzl.
Okay, that's one Mar Mokum, and the second one, page 2, is the Melechus Shlomo, appears on the Mishnah from someone from, his name is Reb Shlomo Adni. He came from Yemen. And this was also written a few hundred years ago. I think he was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Vital. So that
he was a late Achron then.
Yeah, that puts him early Achron.
Early 1600s.
Puts him in the beginning of the 1600s, around the same time as the Seder Doris. And he writes here in the Sakdama to his Pirish how his family moved from Yemen to Yerushalayim, and he says here, Mi beis avi abba, from my grandfather, Hanizkar shahayu me'arei Teimani, they were from the cities of Yemen. Mekublani, I have a Kabbalah, I have a Messiah, I have a tradition. Ki mi galos harishoyin and Yiglinu, that we went into Galos from the first base of Mikdash times to Yemen. Kikra dichsiv b'soif sefer malachim. The sefer that the pasuk says by the Seres Hashvatim that Sancheir put them into Galus. Vayanchim b'chalachu v'chavor nahar goizan v'arei madai. It says some names of cities where he put them. Nem margam aleinu. That was said regarding us. We were from those Seres Hashvatim and we were sent to Yemen. And then he says v'oid kibalnu. We have another tradition. Ki anu min akas sheshalach lohem Ezra la'alois bebinim ba'yishteni. We're from the people that Ezra sent a letter to them to come up at the beginning of Ba'yisheni. Vayitnu kesef soreres, but we gave a rebellious shoulder to Ezra. Vayikalim, and Ezra cursed them. We always call Yemeim ba'oini, that they should be poor all their days.
The Yemenites did tell me that they usually since even before there were those who even fled from Bavel before Babel was even destroyed. Those who even fled even during Ashur, so there were a long time Jews in Yemen.
During what time of Babel?
Even before, even when Ashur came invaded, there are those Jews who fled and ended up in Yemen.
Right, Ashur. This is Sancheir. This is what he's talking about.
Yeah, and the way they told me, it's easy because they took the ship, from the coast of Israel to Yemen and sailed as far as they could till they saw land.
Mm-hmm. Down the coast, down the Red Sea.
Down the Red Sea, yeah. So that's exactly why they do that as a flee from Ashur.
Okay, so. These are two examples of communities that Ezra asked them to come back, and they didn't come back, and he was very angry at them.
Only Germany is surprising. Jews were in Germany for so long. That's surprising.
Right, very surprising. But Al-Quds, now the Rebbe neglects to bring, I don't know why not, but he could have brought that the Gemara itself says that Ezra was mad at the Levium for not coming up, and he made a knas on them not to get Meiser Rishon anymore. Okay, but he's talking about communities besides Babel, so maybe the Levium lived in Babel. Anyway, so his kasha here is, then why was he angry at them for not coming up if the Ramban
only above,
right?
Yeah.
So he said like this: it could be in these places. It could be Ezra had a special reason for these places. We don't know what it was. He wanted them to come up. And he called to them and they didn't listen to him. And that's why he was angry at them. But most of the places and the countries around the world where they didn't settled, even those who remained in Babel, like the Pnei Yeshua, there was no anger at them. That's what Hashem wanted. That's how Hashem was controlling the situation. As I will explain more later. We still see from this Ramban that the oath is in effect. If they come up as a group, even not Roiv Yisrael, and even with permission from the king, the Shvuah is still in effect. Okay?